Do I look funny? What's up, 1010? Wonder if after all this time we're any closer to figuring out how such a seemingly intelligent and beautiful family could find itself in the kind of danger train tracks present to people foolish enough to walk on them. So now that we have researched the problem, what would happen if we wreck the train? How many people are possibly on board if it's a freight train? How many people are on board if it's a passenger train? How safe are the people on board the train if it wrecks? Why might the people have ended up on the tracks? Why might there be people who would let themselves end up in such a position? Is it common for people to walk along train tracks? Are there reasons that people seem to not pay attention to the danger involved? What kind of responsibilities and what kind of protections are in place for dudes or dudettes who find themselves up on that bridge with a boulder? Remember that this essay is about research. It's not about argument just yet. So whether or not you would push the boulder is not the purpose of this essay. The purpose of this essay is simply to combine and collate all the information that you've gathered over the last week. So using those sources, you're not putting together an argument, you're just putting together a survey of the information that you have gathered. We'll save your perspective on this issue for next week. But for this essay, it's not about you. It's not about what you would do. It is simply about filling in the gaps in terms of information that your research has uncovered about what's on trains, who's on trains, what happens when you wreck trains, all that stuff. I somehow feel like I'm pushing my luck, but these are the links I go to for you.
So hi everybody. As the sun goes down on Sunday night, I'd like to talk a little bit about the week ahead. So we have two big things ahead of us. On the one hand, there's a discussion post that I have made available that is going to be due on Wednesday. This discussion post is going to be very similar to the previous one where you were answering questions about the train. The difference now is that you are going to be asking and answering questions about the people on the track and the person on the bridge. So what kinds of questions do we need to ask about the people on the track? Well, first of all, how did they get there is the main question. What are they doing there is a question that just about everyone asked for because some way, somehow we wanted to make sure that we weren't endangering people on the train for the sake of fools who just wandered aimlessly onto the track. But is that really the case? Is this such a rare circumstance that it wouldn't be worth acting, or is this the kind of thing that happens all the time? Is this the kind of mistake that anybody can make? And knowing some of those answers can help us explain at least what the circumstances are. Whenever I think about asking the question whether these people deserve to be saved, I would have to imagine that there would be at least most of us who would say that our philosophies would say that no one really deserves to die horribly like this. Now, I mean this sincerely. Would Jesus ask the question of whether or not these people deserve to be saved? And maybe you're not Christian, but what is the system of philosophy upon which one might reasonably answer a question like that? And then, of course, the person on the bridge who is trying to decide whether or not to push the boulder at all. We discussed a little bit about things like duty to act laws and Good Samaritan laws and instances where, with a goal to save people, tend to have a certain amount of legal protection. But we need to know specifically about what kinds of circumstances are protected under the law and whether or not the situation we're describing is one of those. Would pushing a boulder off a bridge to save a family on the tracks count as the kind of action to help somebody that would be covered by a law, like a Good Samaritan law or a duty to rescue law? So that's the first thing that we need to do. We need to start researching the rest of the question. And then we need to start thinking about our essay. Now, I just want to make clear the distinction between what we're doing for this essay and what we're doing for our last essay. The goal of this essay is not to argue. The goal of this essay is not to give our opinions about whether or not the person should push the boulder. The goal of this essay is simply to answer as many questions about it as possible. The goal of this essay is to present the research that we've done, to present as completely as possible the factual evidence about what we're dealing with in this scenario. That means you're not even really talking about yourself. And that means for sure that you're not entering in an opinion about whether or not to push the boulder. You're simply piecing together all the details that you have learned about the train, about the circumstances of the family on the track, and about the circumstances of the person on the boulder. That's it. You shouldn't probably even be tempted to use the word I in this essay, because this essay isn't about you. It's about the facts at hand. After we accomplish that, we will then start to write about what we would recommend in terms of actions. After we have written an essay in which we synthesize the information that we have discovered, we can write an essay about what to do with that information and what decision to make based on that information. Because even with all the facts laid out, there's still room for argument. There's still room for things like value decisions and personal insights into situations like this that can help us argue about which is the better decision. And just because you think yes may be the better decision doesn't mean that some people have some damn good reasons for thinking that no is the better decision. So, for right now, we just got to get our facts straight. Spend the first part of this week just researching about reasons that people walk on tracks. If you want to enter into a discussion about whether or not these people deserve to be saved, then you're going to have to base that on something other than your opinion for right now. You're going to have to base that into some tangible philosophy or system of ethics that you can quote and cite from in order to make that case. After I see your posts on Wednesday, we'll start thinking about writing the essay and how to get started on the first draft over the weekend. So, in the meantime, more research. Use the source evaluation scorecard to help you find good sources. Remember that any source that you use has to reach a score of 10. Any score that makes it into your final essay has to be credible. It's getting dark. The light is making my face look weird. Yes, I know that this is entirely unacceptable, and by the time I post my last video for the class, I promise things will be mostly restored. In the meanwhile, stay in touch with me online. Don't forget about virtual office hours through Teams. Get that work done, kids.